What's going on? What's going on, people? How are you? Happy Saturday to you guys. This is our registered live. This live is going to be pretty important because we're going to be talking about all the cases that we've been discussing over the last 5 months. And I'm going to be disclosing the brand new case. We have an agenda on this live, like a legitimate agenda. So I'm going to go into that as we get more and more people. So all I ask is just keep tapping the hell out that screen and share it all out. Because when we get started, we're not going back. All right, we're not going to go into the original, to a case that we talked about 10 minutes ago. We're going to run through it. And yes, this is being recorded so that you guys will be able to watch if you can't hop on. Appreciate you, Serena. So if you guys are not able to hop on, you can't stay the whole time, this will be recorded so you guys can watch it on my YouTube channel. Also, the agenda is going to be very simple. I'm going to go over each and every case that we've been talking about. I'm going to give everybody a brief rundown of that case. Okay? Brief rundown, and then I'm going to give you guys the major updates on that case. However, I will not be answering any questions on this live. You guys know I'm very interactive. I ask a lot of questions. I take some questions. I'll have some questions pinned for my mods. We will not be taking any questions on this live. I'm going to be giving you guys all the major updates of the cases that we're working. And then I'm going to be disclosing the brand new case at the very end of this live. So again, we're not going to be taking any questions on this live, but I will be giving you guys all the major updates. So keep tapping that screen, keep sharing this out. The more you guys do it, the better. I'm going to start with JonBenet Ramsey, but I'm going to wait for more and more people to get here. The more people we get in, the quicker we can start. So keep sharing that out and tapping the hell out that screen. Share it out to all your friends and all the hamsters that you guys know. Because once we get this thing going, we are not stopping. Hey guys, hi everybody. Hopefully you guys are all doing well. This is our second live of the day. So again, we have an agenda on this live, and we will be starting with JonBenet Ramsey. That is going to be the first case that we start with. We're going to go through each case for about 15 minutes. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a rundown of the case, a recap of the case, and then I'm going to go to the major updates of the case, and then we're going to move on to the next case. Okay, and I'm going to give you guys updates on all those cases, but we will start with JonBenet Ramsey, mainly because that's the big case we've been talking about for the last 5 weeks, or 4.5 weeks. So, are you guys ready to get started? Because one thing I have to do is make sure you guys are all still with me. So if you guys are ready to get started, I need all of you guys to say yes right now. And we're going to start with this case, and we're going to go into all the major details of this case. Last time I want to say this, guys, I will not be taking any questions on this live. I'm going to give you guys a recap of the case. I'm going to give you all the major new updates of the case, and then we're going to move on. Every single case gets about 15 minutes of time. Are you guys ready? All right, let's start with the most recent case, JonBenet Ramsey. JonBenet Ramsey, as you guys all know, went missing and then was ultimately found December 26th, 1996. Now, that was obviously the day after Christmas. If you look at her headstone, it actually says December 25th, which is interesting because she was found on December 26th. So it's an interesting thing of why the headstone says that. Now, the next thing about JonBenet Ramsey is there's a couple theories out there. One theory is the brother was extremely jealous, extremely insecure regarding her, and decided that he was going to react and eventually harm her in some form of way. Now, there's a theory out there that she had some pineapple and ended up being his pineapple, Burke's pineapple, and then he reacted, flipped out, did some bad stuff, and one of the parents ultimately covered up for him. The next one is John Ramsey. John Ramsey is her dad. So some people think that she was traded off for a trafficking thing or sacrificed or some form of weird ring. Can't say the word here. A weird ring. We don't have any evidence for that either. But that's another theory. The third theory is that Patsy Ramsey did it herself. That is her mom. That Patsy Ramsey did it. We don't even know if that's the case. We don't have any evidence of that. We do have a lot of circumstantial evidence, however. The circumstantial evidence is evidence that needs to require logistical explanations leading us to the main point of contact, so to speak. Direct evidence is something that's clear as day. For example, if I were to say, I saw the car go into the tree, that's direct evidence. But if I said, oh, I saw the car go around the corner and then I heard a bang, that would be circumstantial evidence. We don't know that to be true. We don't know what it hit. We don't know how fast it was going. We can't visualize it. That would be circumstantial evidence. So all we have on this case is circumstantial evidence. Now, A little bit of background on this case. This is the most captivating unsolved case in United States history right now. There's no other case that has surpassed this case. It is unsolved technically. There is some other cases like Casey Anthony that everyone wants to talk about, and that's fine. But that case technically was solved because she was found not guilty, and they already had somebody in custody for that. They had a person of interest being the mom, Casey. But ultimately, we have the answer that we didn't really want, but it is what it is. This is the most captivating unsolved situation in United States history. This also has the longest ransom note ever written in United States history, almost 3 pages long. It was 2 3/4 pages. People don't write ransom notes like that, guys, at all. They don't do that. Ransom notes are typically only quick and to the point. Maybe a few sentences, maybe a paragraph. That's it. We have your daughter. If you want her back, meet us here at this time, at this place, with this much money. That's it. It's short and sweet to the point. Now, let's talk about some major updates on this case. So JonBenet Ramsey, as you guys know, has been missing. Well, she went missing and then she was found December 26, 1996. Now, there's no people of interest or persons of interest. There's no suspects, no indictments, no nothing. There was, and don't worry about my dog, he's just being a dog. There was over 40,000 pages of evidence that were given to the Boulder District Attorney's Office, and Alex Hunter chose not to pursue those charges. He was the DA at the time. He chose not to pursue those charges. Now, moving forward, Mary Lacey was the next DA. She also chose not to follow through with any charges, mainly because all the evidence was circumstantial evidence only. That's all there was just circumstantial evidence. When you have circumstantial evidence like that, you need a whole bunch of it to get an actual conviction. And they were not willing to test taxpayer dollars to pay that amount of money for a possible conviction. So they never actually pursued those charges. Stephen Thomas left the PD, ended up writing a book and going rogue. So that's what Stephen Thomas did. Now, let's talk about the biggest updates of this case. Now, the biggest updates, guys, on this case, about 2.5 weeks ago, at this point, almost 3 weeks ago, the new chief of police, Fairburn, I think his name is, Fairburn came externally away from Boulder, Colorado. They did not hire within, okay? They hired externally. He has no political connections with Boulder, Colorado, and he has no law enforcement connections with Boulder, Colorado. He may have some friends, but nothing crazy. He is extremely in tune with social media. He is extremely in tune with finding answers for this little girl. He is working 100% with John Ramsey, utilizing social media, utilizing new technology in all the ways that they can get answers for this little girl. As we know right now, there is no new evidence that's being disclosed. He did mention, the new chief of police did mention, in fact, say that we are looking at new evidence, but did not disclose what that new evidence was. He also disclosed that they're going to be retesting some of the old evidence, some of the old DNA and all that stuff. I will say this, knowing that they were told to retest DNA, if you guys didn't know, the Boulder Colorado has the CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigations, which is Colorado's version of the FBI. They were told by the CBI that they should re-examine the DNA, which leads us to believe that DNA was either tainted, manipulated, or not tested properly. That leads me to believe everyone's back on the table. So all the people that were told, oh, they were cleared from DNA or they were cleared because of DNA, they're all back on the table now. Because if they were tainted in any way, if any of that DNA was tainted in any way or manipulated in any way, in any way, shape, or form, that means they are all back on the table and they can all be looked at again. To be fair, some of these people have passed on. That's okay. They still have their DNA on file. So they can still do what they have to do. And if they realize there's a link to the DNA, they can 100% make sure that they link it to that individual and they can at least have somebody held responsible for this little girl, whether they're still with us or not. So just know they can still do that. Now, the other bit of new information on this case is that the DNA that was found on her underpants, her undergarments, are actually too depleted and degraded to go through genealogy testing. This is per the new chief of police. Okay, this isn't me. This is per the new chief of police. They said when they were going through everything, that DNA is just too degraded and too depleted. Our technology is just not advanced enough to be able to do anything with that DNA to get any answers that we're looking for. That also leads me to believe that that DNA was not preserved properly. They can literally test DNA from like 74 years ago if it's preserved properly. Something tells me it was never preserved properly. So that's why I believe they're not able to test it. They also did not confirm all the new stuff that they're testing. There's new items that they're testing. According to John Ramsey, they are still not going to be testing that paintbrush. If you don't know anything about the paintbrush was used as a garrote, whatever it's called, which is something where you tie like a rope or some form of ribbon like in and around it, and then you twist it. And as you twist it, and it's almost like a tourniquet. If you guys know what a tourniquet is, it's used in the medical profession, in the medical field. And you keep twisting it until it creates tension, tighter, and tighter. It was used in this area of her body. They are still not going to be testing that. Do we know why? No, we do not. I believe based on my experience, there's something in the wood. There's an element in wood that does not allow it to be tested, or whatever's going on there. There's an element in that wood that that like almost degrades the DNA. We really don't know. But they're not going to be testing that from what we understand. But they did say they're going to be testing new stuff, but we don't know what that stuff really is. Now, those are all the major updates on JonBenet Ramsey. We have been discussing JonBenet Ramsey for the last 5 weeks, okay? There is a lot of information out there. One thing I will tell every single one of you on here right now: trust the facts of the case and the evidence of the case. Do not be misguided and misled down a path of opinion or listening to people that are basing everything on opinion. We can't base things on opinion. We have to look at the facts. Look at the police reports. They're out there. That's where I get my information from. Look at the press release reports. They are confirmed by Boulder Police. Look at it. Look at the grand jury information. That stuff is all out there. Go and look at it. Focus on that. Don't focus on anything else. Don't focus on the opinionated stuff. Like, for example, that was Burke Ramsey's pineapple that was found in her belly, because you don't know that. There's no way to prove that. You're just, and I'm not talking about you guys specifically, but again, we don't know that. We don't know whose pineapple it was. So we can't blame that on Burke. We can't say Burke was jealous because we can't prove that. We can't say Burke harmed her because we can't prove that. So let's stick with the facts in the facts only. I will tell you guys this. This has been a phenomenal case to cover. I will not let up on this case. We will still be talking about this case. But that is the rundown of JonBenet Ramsey. That is the recap of everything. Obviously, I didn't give you every nitty-gritty detail because we'd be here for 17 hours. I gave you guys a recap of the whole thing, and I gave you guys all the theories. I will tell you guys my theory on this. I believe it was someone that was already in the house. I believe it was someone that knew the house. I believe it was someone that knew the layout of the house. I believe it was someone that knew her. I believe she knew the individual as well. I do not believe they acted alone. I believe that they acted with somebody else, and I believe it's somebody close to that family. As I said, it's close enough to the family where they're going to know the layout of that home, the comfort level of her, able to get into that house completely and utterly undetected. You knew this house. This was done in the house. That ransom note, in my honest opinion, was just a deflection. That ransom note wasn't real. It was written, but it's not real. Okay, it wasn't real because everything in that ransom note never ever actually happened. Nothing. They never called between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. They never did any of the things that they said they were going to do. They never got the ransom amount. Nothing. That, in my opinion, was an absolute deflection. So, before we move on to the next case, I want all of you guys show a little bit of love for JonBenet. She deserves it. I'm not going to let up off this case. We're still going to be talking about this case. This was a great case to cover because you know what? We are getting answers. And I can tell you right now, the fact that we're talking about this on a daily basis is what's going to get cases like this solved. Because people like me are not going to let up on it. And if it was any of one of your kids, you'd want someone like me talking about it. So before, guys, we move on to the next case, this is something we're going to do before we go into the next case. Every case we're going to talk about is going to get 15 minutes. We're going to get a recap, and you're going to get all major updates. Before we move on to the next case, can we get a little bit of support for JonBenet? She doesn't have that voice anymore. Someone like me is going to be her voice along with other people. So before we move on to the next case, there's 1,100 of you. Let's press that little follow button. It's right above the screen. Keep tapping that screen and keep sharing that out. But let's press that follow button above my squash. Let's give JonBenet the voice she hasn't had in 29 years. Let's give John Ramsey some answers for his daughter. Let's give Burke some answers for his sister. And I will tell you this, if we find out that Burke or John is actually in fact responsible, then we'll have another conversation. But as right now, John is now spending he just had his 29th Christmas without his kid. Burke just had his 29th Christmas without his sister. Okay? Let's show some support. Press that little follow button right above my head, right over here, somewhere in that range. This case is not going away. We're still going to be talking about this case. But for now, let's move on to the next case. One thing I will say, guys, as well, if you're just hopping on now, I'm not going to be answering any questions. I do see you guys saying hi. I see the gifts you guys are sending me. I love it and I appreciate it. But I'm not going to be answering any questions on this live. I'm going to give you guys recaps and all major updates on all these cases. But just know I'm seeing everything you guys are doing. The followers, the taps, the likes, the shares. I see it. I see it and I love it. So let's go on to the next case, shall we? Remember, every case that we talk about is going to get 15 minutes. And next, we are going to be talking about Ellen Greenberg. Ellen Greenberg is, I don't know if it's still on Hulu right now, but that was Unaliving in Apartment 603. Now, Ellen Greenberg essentially passed away in the apartment of her own home. This was not that long back, 2011. Okay, so this wasn't really that long ago, but let me give you guys a brief recap of Ellen Greenberg. So Ellen Greenberg was at school one day. She was a teacher, and there was some speculation out there that she was suffering from some mental health. There was some speculation out there that she was suffering from some issues within her own relationship with her fiance, Sam Goldberg. So there was a lot of speculation around there. So that day that she ended up ultimately being found unalived, she was at school working as a teacher. Now, there was a big blizzard that night. So the fact that there was a blizzard, they were allowed to leave early and then go home. So what she did was she left work. She ended up going to get gas. She drove a Jeep, got gas, went to a restaurant to possibly pick up some food, and then came home. She gets home around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Sam Goldberg is home with her as well. Sam Goldberg at the time was her fiance. Sam Goldberg decided to go to the gym at one point, leave, and then come back. Now, the gym was inside that apartment. It was like one of those apartment complexes that have like gyms and movie theaters and tennis courts, you know, like I guess pretty much is what everywhere right now. So Ellen was in the house cooking up dinner, getting stuff ready. Sam goes to the gym, which was right downstairs. You see him on camera walking to the gym. You see him enter the gym. You don't see what he does in the gym, but you see him enter the gym. Then you see him exit the gym. You see him exit the gym like around 40 minutes later. He wasn't really at the gym for very, very long. Comes home or back to the house, and he locks himself out by accident. He can't get into the house. Then we found out that the lock was latched, which is that, you know, that safety lock. It's like a latch lock that all the hotels have. He couldn't get in. So he starts knocking on the door. Nobody's answering. He's texting Ellen. He's calling Ellen. She's not answering. He sent some pretty interesting text messages to her. Pretty much things like, what are you doing in there? Why aren't you answering? You better have a good excuse. Stuff like that. Sam decides to go downstairs and talk to I call him a concierge, but one of the security guys that works the desk. Goes downstairs and says, can you help me? She's not answering the door. Can you come up there? And he goes, well, I can't leave my post. I have to stay here. So he goes back up there and ends up kicking the door down. Again, this is what we're hearing from Sam Goldberg. He kicks the door down, finds her unalived with multiple sharp object wounds in her body. 10 on the front of her body, 10 on the back of her body. Let me say that again. 10 on the front of her body, 10 on the back of her body. And yes, this took place in Pennsylvania. Now, Sam Goldberg is letting us understand that his thought was he entered the home and that is how she looked. He found her that way. Unfortunately, the facts of the case do not really line up to that. For example, he had to get on the phone with 911 and he had to call them to let them know that his fiance was possibly unalived. They said, what is she doing? Is she laying down? He said, yes, she's laying down. But if you look at the actual police reports and the evidence photos, you'll see that she's actually sitting up. And she's sitting up against the cabinets, almost like slouched over like this. So she wasn't laying down. If she was moved. Pretty interesting. Also, before 911 actually showed up, Sam Goldberg's cousin and uncle showed up. Cousin showed up. And he's involved with like attorneys and law, whatever. He showed up. And then he left. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, especially in this specific area, if something is ruled a self-unaliving, the case is closed, the investigation is over, nothing more happens, your hands are washed of the situation. And that is what happened with Ellen Greenberg situation. Ellen Greenberg was found, quote unquote, unalive, self-unalived, and they never did anything about it. They never continued to investigate it because they looked at it as it was a self-unaliving. And again, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, if it's deemed a self-unaliving, the investigation is over. Now, the next day, who goes into the house? Sam Goldberg's uncle goes in and retrieves the laptop, Ellen's laptop. Now remember, that's not Ellen's uncle. That is Sam's uncle. Goes in and retrieves property that doesn't even belong to him or someone in his family. It belonged to Ellen. Went in there and took the laptop and some other things and said, well, I didn't want anything to be stolen because the house was not secure because the lock wasn't locked. Because remember, the lock was broken. So they decided at that point to go in and go take some stuff. Now, over time, to give you guys a little bit more of a recap, over time, we found out some more stuff. For example, the woman Melissa, who was a manager of that place, gets a phone call. And it was from from Sam Goldberg's uncle saying, can I enter the home? I want to grab a few things. She calls the police and says, is that okay? And they said, well, it was a self-unaliving. It's not active crime scene. You can do whatever you want. She goes, but it's a mess in there. He goes, oh, you can get someone to clean it up. There's crime scene cleanup crews. And she had a crime scene cleanup crew. So she went in and took a video on her phone of everything and how the crime scene looked at that time. Wouldn't you guys know that video that she took, that she gave to the police to say, hey, look, this is how it looked before they cleaned it up, was misplaced. They never found that video. And Melissa, who was the manager of the building or something like that, manager of maintenance, whatever it was, said, yeah, I took a video of the scene and I gave it to police and they lost it. It was literally misplaced. We would have been able to see everything how it looked, how everything was placed, everything. But unfortunately, it was misplaced. Now, let's talk about the major updates on this case. The biggest update is as of October 14th, just this past October, just about 2.5 months ago, they reopened this case and they sent it out to an independent medical examiner to look at all the evidence. The family was pushing for this. Their attorney was pushing for this. They were looking into this again. Now, here was what was supposed to happen. If they chose to reopen that investigation and it was labeled as a unaliving, not a self-unaliving, but a purposeful unaliving by somebody else, they were going to reopen this investigation and go at it 120%. If it was deemed a self-unaliving, they were just going to leave it closed and that was it. Well, on October 14, 2025, the new medical examiner that was not new, but an independent one that was appointed took a look at this case and still came back with it was a self-unaliving. So unfortunately, knowing that it was a self-unaliving, they cannot reopen this case. That's just the way it is. They have independent investigators. They have other people like myself talking about this, but unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done by us. Nothing at all. There's nothing we can do. As much as we want to do things about this, as much as we want to jump down there and do, we can't. The case has been closed. One more bit of important information to know, and this was also in the documentaries, guys, so you guys can see this as well. Just understand one thing. At one point, there was a private off-the-books meeting, and you can see this in the documentary as well. There was an off-the-books meeting between some political figures, the medical examiner, police, and there was no notes taken. It was all verbal. That's why I call it an off-the-books meeting. And that medical examiner changed it from an unaliving to a self-unaliving, changed the COD, the cause of you-know-what, the cause of the unaliving. That off-the-book conversation was changed. Now, I will say this. After being told you will go in front of a jury and you're going to have to testify about this meeting, that medical examiner then changed it to a unaliving again. So yes, it was changed to an unaliving and then eventually changed back to a self-unaliving. So this past October 14th, 2025, again, they looked at it with an independent medical examiner and they came back to it as being a self-unaliving. And yes, that's how we have to say it. This is TikTok. We can't say the actual words, but this is called a self-unaliving. And again, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, when you have something like that, the case is closed. They do not reopen it. I've looked at some other, groups and stuff like that. There's nothing that can be done. Even if you petition it, you get 25, 30,000 signatures, you would still need that DA to want to open that back up. And Shapiro is not going to do that. I can promise you right now. I think his name is Joe Shapiro, but don't quote me on the first name, but his last name is Shapiro. Don't quote me on that, because Shapiro and Sam Goldberg's uncle, who is a judge as well, or was it John Shapiro? Thank you, guys. I got the J right. That's what I'm just going to go with, Shapiro. Or John, or whatever it is. Shapiro. Shapiro and Sam Goldberg's uncle, who is a judge, are very close. So in my opinion, you're not going to get much more out of it. And that is the major update that we have. It's sad. Ellen, as you see her here, just smiling and loving life, that was how she was. Always, according to her parents and her friends that spoke on this is how she always was. She was always happy. She was always excited. She was always happy about getting married. She was happy about her lifestyle. She wasn't really a fan of working where she worked as a teacher, and I know that her dad wanted her to maybe rethink it and kind of stick it out for a little bit because she just wasn't very happy about it. But I think we've all had those moments where we're like, what the hell are we doing? But she really did love Sam, and as of right now, it is labeled a self-unaliving, and Sam Goldberg is not considered a suspect. And as I said in the previous case, unless we have evidence that points to him, nothing that's circumstantial, there's nothing we can do. Everything that happened while he was at the gym. We don't have any evidence where he was actually in there or anyone heard anything. It is what it is, and that is where we're at with Ellen Greenberg. Now, I said this on the last case. Ellen doesn't have a voice anymore. She does not have a voice because somebody took that voice from her. I personally do not believe she took her own voice. I do not believe she took her own self. I do not believe that. I believe someone did it. And I believe someone took her voice. So we have to be her voice. We're not going to let up on these cases, okay? We will not let up on these cases. More and more information will continue to come up the more we talk about it. But that is all the big updates for Ellen Greenberg. So before we move on, guys, to the very, very next case, at the very top of the screen, press that little support button, that little follow button. It helps us be the voice for these victims and their families. Their parents are getting old. They can't keep doing the things that they're doing. They can't keep pushing this forward and struggling through. They're going through many, many years, many holidays, many birthdays without their loved ones. The only way we can be the voice for them is if you guys press that little follow button above my head, that support button, tagging me in things, seeing me in things, letting me talk and be the voice for the people that cannot be that voice. So that's where we're at right now. So guys, before we go on to the next case, keep tapping that screen and share this out. If you guys could share this out with like 2 or 3 people, that would be great. It takes 2 seconds. Repost it out, whatever you guys got to do, repost this out and push this out. But that is what we have for major updates with Ellen Greenberg. So as you guys keep following and tapping that screen and sending gifts, let's move on to the next case of updates. How many of you guys remember this young lady? This is Mara Murray. I got to kind of get out of the way here. This is Mara Murray. Now, Mara Murray went missing back in 2004. Out of New Hampshire, Haverhill, New Hampshire, to be exact. Yes, there is a Haverhill, Mass. This was not Haverhill, Massachusetts. Completely different area. Okay, this was out of Haverhill, New Hampshire. Now, let me give you guys a brief rundown of this case. I'm going to give you all the major updates on it. Brief rundown on this case is this girl was in college. She was 21 years old. She went to UMass Amherst. Before she went there, she went to Mass Maritime Academy, which is like a military-style academy. Now, her sister Julie is very, very active on TikTok. I've talked to her in the past, haven't talked to her in a long, long time, but she also went to Mass Maritime as well, so she has that military-style background. Now, she was an avid runner, like cross-country runner, track, like she was doing her thing, very, very athletic, but the military academy just was not really her thing. So she moved on and she ended up at UMass Amherst. If you guys don't know what UMass Amherst is, by the way, in Massachusetts, we have the University of Massachusetts, and we have different segments throughout the state. You have Amherst, you have UMass Boston, UMass Dartmouth, you have UMass Lowell, UMass something else I'm not remembering, but it is like 4 of them. Just so you guys know what it is. Okay, it's UMass, University of Massachusetts. So there's a bunch of them. She was out UMass Amherst, which is like out there, as I would say it. Being on the East Coast, we just say it was out there. Now, she took up nursing in school. That was her major, was nursing. That was going to be her niche. One day in February, she decided she was going to go somewhere. Now, we don't really know where she was going, what her thought process was, but she was going through a lot. Her sister Kathleen just relapsed from alcohol. Now, she was very close with her sister. She was very close with both of her sisters in reality. She was close with her whole family. And the fact is her sister was going through a little relapse. She also had some issues. Like, for example, the night before she went for this ride and ultimately went missing, she got into a car accident in her father's vehicle. Yeah, she got into an accident with her father's vehicle. It cost a lot of money. She was already in a little bit of trouble. She had a lot going on there. She had the issue with Kathleen. She also stole some stuff. She had some like little petty theft things that were going on, where she stole like some lipstick or makeup. She used a credit card or something that didn't have any funds on it so she could buy some food at the cafeteria. Like, she had some little things going on. But if we add up all those little things, we can understand what was happening. So she allegedly sent an email to her professor saying, we had an unaliving in the family. Can't say it on TikTok. We had an unaliving in the family. I won't be in school for a few days. Yet she still handed in her homework. I think she handed it in via email. So she still handed in her homework, which was interesting. So on February 9, 2004, she decides she's going to go to the ATM and almost withdraw her entire account. I think she took out a few $100. And she starts going for a ride. She stops at a liquor store on the way. She was only there for a brief period of time. She ends up getting on, I think it's 112, but don't quote me on that. But she gets on a little back road. Now, this was back in 2004. This back road had all woods everywhere. There's like a few houses, but mainly all woods. Not very well lit. This was in February. It was cold. She goes and makes a ride. She gets into some form of car accident. Her vehicle now is facing the opposite direction. Police show up. She's gone. Never to be seen from again. Now, let me connect some of these dots for you guys a little bit. Just without me just telling you that she's gone, never to be heard from again or seen from, let me give you a little bit more connection here. So, investigators in the Maura Murray documentary that you guys can still look up and watch, it's still available on TV. There was a retired U.S. Marshal and a local journalist that did this ride. The exact ride that she did. They left UMass Amherst, went to the ATM, went to the liquor store, and then drove, and still got to the exact location that she was found, and they factored in the drive time, the traffic, everything, and still was 1 hour of unaccounted for time. Meaning, when they left, it took them 3 hours, for example, when it took Maura 4 hours. And I'm just giving you an example there. There was 1 hour of unidentified time. They couldn't figure out what that time was. Now, in my opinion, she stopped to grab food. She stopped to grab a drink. She stopped to just kind of like maybe let the traffic go by. Like, to me, she made a stop somewhere, but we don't know where that stop was or even if it's still there. Now, she gets into this car accident and multiple vehicles have driven by, one of which was a witness that lived like right there. And they noticed a specific vehicle that was there. It was 001. 001 police vehicle always typically stands for the number one police officer in that town or in that city. Typically the chief of police. That's always going to be 001. That's what she said. She had no reason to lie, and she was very clear it was 001. That is what she mentioned. Now, there was also some speculation that a bus driver named Butch Atwood shows up. It was like a school bus. A school bus driver drives up, sees her unattended, standing outside of her vehicle, and said, "Do you need any help? Do you need me to make a phone call? Do you need me to call the police?" She goes, "No, I already called AAA." Well, there's no cell phone service there, so there's no way she called AAA. According to her sister Julie, no phone calls were made at that time, so she lied. But it does make sense why she lied. It was just a random guy that stopped to talk to her. She was probably a little bit nervous. So he lived literally 150 to 200 yards up the road. He went in there, talked to his wife. They called 911. Response time was about 7 to 8 minutes. And they showed up. The police showed up, and she was gone. No one has any idea what happened to her. She was absolutely gone. And those are the facts of the case. We can go into, you can go into well, maybe this happened, maybe that. We don't know what happened. So that's the recap of the case. She started driving. We have no idea where she was going. We have no idea why she was going there. We could assume that she was going away for a few days because she told her teacher that she'd be back. She said, "I'll be gone for a few days." She never said, "I won't be back." Nothing. She didn't technically drop out of school. We don't know what happened. Now, let's talk about all the major updates on this case. There's not very many. For example, there's some speculation out there that a witness came forward saying that they drove by Maura's car on that road. I think it was 112. On that road, and her car was facing north. And now, listen, I don't know exactly what way the car was facing, but let's just say was facing north. But ultimately, when the cops got there, the car was facing south. So it was facing the other way. According to Julie, they don't have any proof that the car was facing one way and then it was hit after the fact. They don't know, but right now that's chalked up to speculation. Also, some other big updates was that they were able to track down somebody that she used to hook up with at the military academy. And then she started to get to know at UMass Amherst. She stuck around. She hung out with them. She hooked up with them a little bit. There was you guys remember burned CDs, like a burned disc? They found a burned disc or a burned CD with another guy's print on it. They went and spoke with him. He was in jail for animal cruelty. They spoke with him, but apparently they can't place him there. They cannot place him there. That's the only problem. So they were unable to place him there. And the only other thing about this case, the only major updates is that area doesn't look the same anymore. Most of those people all passed away. Like Butch Atwood, he passed away like a few years after Mara Murray went missing. We have no idea what happened. They brought cadaver dogs in there to do a smell. They did a smell scent all the way through the woods, couldn't come up with anything. Then they picked up on something, those dogs. They picked up on something outside on the road to the end of the road where the stop sign was and then went missing. Meaning, like, it stopped. There was no more scent, which could lead us to believe that maybe she was picked up. But we really, truly don't know. Those are the major updates for Mara Murray. Unfortunately, I think her dad's name is Fred. He's getting old. He's getting old, and he deserves to get answers for his daughter. Julie deserves answers for her sister. She's a strong advocate for her sister. She's on social media. She's doing what she absolutely can do. But at this point, we don't have any information. Also, the cops took like 13 years to finally get in touch with the family and start talking to them about stuff, which is very interesting. It took them 13 years. Like, why would it take you so long? Why is it taking so long for you to get back to the family? They're just looking for answers. Okay? They're just looking for answers, but they weren't able to get through to them. It took them 13 years. And according to Julie on her TikToks as well, they're still not getting answers, even to this day. So at this point, this has gone cold, and it's almost like they don't want to solve it. I'm not talking about the family, I'm talking about law enforcement. It doesn't want to solve it. Also, if you guys are wondering about 001, if you guys are worrying about like responding police, 001 was a chief of police. He's passed away. He moved to Maine, and he passed away, I think, in 2003. Then there was a sergeant that was involved. He was the responding cop, a completely different cop that responded to the 911 call. He actually took his own life about a year or two after the documentary was aired. So it's been interesting. But again, this is Mara Murray. This is a big one because here in Massachusetts, this was huge. She didn't have any issues, nothing at all, no problems. Everyone liked her. She liked them. There was really no issues like at all. And all of a sudden, she just disappeared. I highly suggest you guys to go look at this, go watch some of the documentaries, brush up on some information regarding it because, there's a lot going on there. We're going to still talk about this case. We are going to go back and forth with it. I think it's going to be really, really important. But we will absolutely make sure that we do not forget about Mara Murray. She deserves answers. She deserves justice. In my opinion, I've been giving you guys my opinion on the last few cases. In my opinion, I do not believe she's with us anymore. I believe there was something nefarious that happened. I believe that, I believe somebody took her. I don't believe she just ran away. This was in the middle of the woods, in backwoods area of New Hampshire. I don't believe she just ran into the woods just to hope for the best. I don't believe that. I believe somebody grabbed her. Somebody snatched her, and I just, unfortunately, I do not believe she's with us any longer. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I just do not believe she's with us any longer. But that does not mean she does not deserve justice. That does not mean she does not deserve a voice. So Julie Murray is doing the absolute best she can. I am going to do the best I can to continue talking about Mara Murray's case, kind of looking and using my connections to see if I can get any answers as well. Before we move on, guys, from this case, there's 1,100 of you. Press that plus sign right above my head. Press that little support button, that follow button. We want to continue to be the voice. Julie can only do so much. Fred can only do so much. Like, that inner circle can only do so much. The only way we're going to get answers for these victims is if you guys continue to follow and support. So right above my head, there's the follow button, support button, whatever you want to call it. Keep tagging me and stuff. Keep tapping that screen. Keep sharing this out. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I see everything that you're doing. That is the biggest update when it comes down to Mara Murray. Unfortunately, we don't have anything else. It has kind of gone cold. And if the family's not getting information from law enforcement, we're kind of stuck. There's nothing more we can do. I know I've seen Julie's information. I've heard her podcast. She is desperately trying to get answers, but she can only go so far. If the police is not willing to give the information and not willing to reveal the information, we're stuck. We are stuck. And that's where we're at right now. So guys, that is Maura Murray. And guys, just so you know, quick recap. We talked about JonBenet Ramsey. I gave you the recap of JonBenet Ramsey. I also gave you the update, the major updates on JonBenet Ramsey. We then went into Ellen Greenberg. I gave you guys a recap of Ellen Greenberg. I also gave you the major updates of Ellen Greenberg. This is now, we're talking about Maura Murray. I gave you guys a recap of Maura Murray, and I gave you all the updates on her. Now, let's make our way to the next case. This one is a real important case, specifically, to me. This is Ashley Barnett. Now, if you guys don't know much about Ashley Barnett was on a cruise. She was going down to Mexico. Now, in this Mexican cruise that she was going, I think it was like a 3-day cruise, according to her brother. I talked with her brother, Seth. We had him live a few times. Sometimes he's on these lives, sometimes he's not. He was in California last time I checked on Christmas vacation. So, by the way, great movie. I digress. But so Ashley was on I call it like a reggae cruise, but it was a music cruise for 3 days down in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, knowing that, she goes on the cruise with her friends and boyfriend at the time. So if I'm not mistaken, it was her boyfriend, the boyfriend's brother, another random guy, and another girl, and then obviously her. Now, just so you guys know, she was found, okay? She was found unalived on day 2 of the cruise. Yes, she was found unalived on day 2 of that cruise. She had ingested an illicit rug, put a D in front of the word rug, that was brought onto the ship by her boyfriend at the time. He actually says it in the 48-hour, I think it's the 48-hour episode, but he said he brought a certain illicit substance onto the ship, and that's what was found in her system. Now, here's some of the information behind this case that's really, really interesting. She had told her boyfriend at the time, I want to wake up early the next day and I want to go sightseeing. I want to take pictures. I want to see the island. I want to see everything. She was very excited. Remember, this was only a 3-day cruise. Well, according to what we understand based on that documentary that I just disclosed, and then also what the boyfriend had said at the time, was that she went to bed kind of late. He woke up around 11 o'clock in the morning and she didn't wake up yet. So he went and had breakfast with the entire group of people and left her back at the room. He then comes back after about 2 hours. Yes, 2 hours for breakfast. Whatever. He leaves and comes back. She's still asleep. Now, again, this is just based on what he's saying. Now, he said when he went to go wake her up, she didn't wake up. So then he lifted her eyelids and saw that her eyes were just blank. That's when he realized she had passed away, possibly had passed away. He starts yelling back and forth. He starts going up and down the hallways, screaming. An off-duty fireman or EMT comes in, starts performing CPR and life-saving measures. A nurse shows up 30 minutes later. This is based on what Seth Barnett, her brother, had told us on the live that you guys probably saw us do. He said it took about 30 minutes to get a nurse down there, performing life-saving measures. They couldn't save her. They just could not save her. She had passed away. She had OD'd on those illicit substances that were found in her system. Now, here's the background of that whole situation. I didn't like the fact that it took the boyfriend 2 hours to eat breakfast and then not go back with any orange juice, not go back with any pancakes. You know what I mean? You might be thinking, what are you talking about? Well, like, you knew that your girlfriend was in the room and she hadn't eaten. You don't even go back with anything for her. You just kind of like, just go away for 2 hours. So we don't know what they were doing for that 2 hours. Now, according to Seth, Seth Barnett is her brother. Now, according to Seth, he mentioned that he actually saw one of their mutual friends at one point, and the mutual friend was going to talk to one. I want to say it was the brother. It wasn't the boyfriend, but it was the brother. They said, look, I want to talk about what happened on the ship. And Seth said, okay. And he was talking to the mutual friend. He said, let me give you a recording device so that, we can figure out whatever he said. But the kid never showed up. So originally he said, I want to talk about what happened on the ship, but then never showed up. Another thing Seth mentioned is he was at like a track, or like was going for a run or something around the track, and then happened to see, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say he saw the brother. I don't think, or maybe it was one of the girls. I think it was one of the girls that was on the ship, and then she just left. They made eye contact, and then she just left. So they've been avoiding him. Now, we haven't been able to get answers. Yes, guys, she was found on day 2, but we haven't been able to get answers for Ashley. The boyfriend that she was dating at the time was kind of MIA. From according to her brother, Seth, he hasn't spoken since the documentary. It's been many, many years. Seth is trying to get in touch with him desperately. I spoke with Seth the other day. He said we're making a little bit of headway, but we're still kind of stuck. He said some other things, but I can't disclose it. But I was like, look, this is all normal. This is all part of it. You just have to go very slowly and very lightly. Just be patient. I know you've been patient for a long time. Just be patient. So it looks like he's making a little headway, but he's kind of stuck. Now, here's the major update for Ashley Barnett, in case you guys didn't know. Here is the major updates. Seth, and the family requested a FOIA request. A FOIA request is a Freedom of Information Act. Freedom of Information Act is an act that allows, once the case is closed, to release the information that was going on during the investigation. However, according to Seth just recently, I think it was about maybe 2 weeks ago, Seth mentioned that the FOIA request, not that it was denied, but he has to get it from like the original DA or something, or he has to put in the request with the new DA. It was something with the DAs, something like that. But it pretty much he didn't put in the request with the correct person, something like that. So at this point, I said, okay, let's just keep doing it. Let's just, whoever you got to put in the request with, put it in. Whatever it takes, just put it in, which I know he's doing. So that's where he is right now. That is the major update on that. He's in California as I stand right now for like a Christmas vacation with his family. He said his plan was to try to get in touch with the boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend at the time. The ex-boyfriend has now moved on. Obviously, he has a family, he's got kids, he's got a job. He doesn't want his life blown up. I get it. But Seth does want to get some answers. He hasn't been able to get in touch with him yet. But that's where we're at on that. Now, the last thing I want to say about this case, which is going to lead me into the next case, is when it comes down to it, guys, when you're on international waters, you have to be careful. International waters, guys, is lawless. Okay? If you guys are U.S. citizens, it don't matter if you're on international waters. If you are a Caribbean citizen, like part of the Caribbean somewhere, one of those islands, it doesn't matter. You have zero rights when you're on international waters. I want to make sure that's very, very clear. Zero rights. You want to know why? Because there's no police officers. No one knows whose jurisdiction it is. Nothing at all. So people just start looking at each other saying, are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? Who's taking it? You taking it? Who's taking pictures? Nobody knows what to do. So just understand that when you guys are traveling internationally and you're on a cruise and you're on international waters, please, please, please understand that when you are on international waters, it is lawless. Okay, if you guys have seen the movie or the show on Netflix, Cabin 10 or Cabin Number 10, like, I don't know if you guys got a chance to see Cabin Number 10, there's a scene at the very, very beginning, right before they start to do illegal, quote unquote, rugs. The person who owns the boat says, are we on international waters yet? And they said, yep, we are. And he goes, well, they asked, why do we have to be on international waters? He goes, because we can't get in trouble. It's the same. Guys, that comes from that, like not directly, but that is what I'm saying, guys. It's legitimately lawless. Once you're on international waters, you can essentially commit a felony and nothing's going to happen to you. Unless, of course, somebody sees it. But then you got to worry about who's going to take over it. So just understand that is what it is. Guys, that is the update with Ashley Barnett. I gave you guys the recap on Ashley Barnett. I gave you guys the major updates. This is a sad one because I really, really like Seth. And listen, I like Julie Murray as well. I don't know Ellen Greenberg's family. I've reached out many times, but I haven't spoken to them. John Benet Ramsey's family, I haven't been able to speak to John Ramsey or Burke. But again, they all want answers for their loved ones. And the only way, guys, we're going to get answers for these victims is if you guys continue to allow me to talk about it. So that you guys can allow me to be tagged, to put this out there and to be the voice of reason. So again, before we move on to the next case, can you guys do me a favor and press that follow button right above my head? It's somewhere up here. The next case is a big one. It's a big one. It's going to take me some time to give you guys recaps and give you guys all the major information and major updates. It's going to be a big one. So before I go into that, guys, please press that follow button right above my head. It really does mean a lot. We're building this up and we want to be the voice of reason, and we want to be the voice for these victims who can't be the voice anymore. Seth Barnett has a family. He's got a life. He's got a job. He's talking about his sister all the time. All the time. He's talking about his family. But I can do it too. He needs all the support, and so does John Ramsey and Burke Ramsey, and so does Ellen Greenberg's family, and so does Julie Murray and Fred Murray and her brother. They all deserve that. So let's press that follow button right above my squash. And now, the next two cases, which are the final two cases, are quite the doozies. They are big cases. Now, how many of you know who this is? This is a big case, okay? I worked on this case for months. Months, guys, I've been working on this case. Months, okay? To the point, and I don't want clout for this, to the point where if you guys got an opportunity, if you guys know who Sandy Ann is a great, great friend of the Bradley family. She went to school with Amy. She was letting me know just today that Brad Bradley, her brother Brad was on Dr. Phil for part 4 and brought up the shoes on the balcony. Don't know if you guys remember, but who brought up the shoes on the balcony? You guys remember who that was? And I don't care. I don't care. What I care about is that we're getting closer to answers. That's what matters. I was the one that brought that up, and I'm glad it was brought up because it means we're going in the right direction. So let's get into the Amy Bradley situation, I should say. So Amy Bradley went missing in March of 1998. Now, March 24th to be exact. So she goes missing in March of 1998. She was on a cruise ship, okay? She was on a cruise ship. Now, on this cruise ship, she went with her family. She went with her mom, her dad, and her brother. By the way, brother, straight up stud. I digress. So, either way, she goes on this trip. Her dad won this trip. He was in insurance. And now if you guys know anything about sales, if you do really well in sales, they send you like President's Club or they send you on trips. So he won this trip. Okay. It was supposed to be for Ron and Iva Bradley, which is the mom and dad, Amy Bradley's mom and dad. Now, they did not want to go without their kids. So they went back Ron went back to his boss and said, "Can I bring my kids?" And they said, "Yeah, you're just going to have to, you're just gonna have to spend the money for it." And they said, okay. So he spent an extra $2,000 out of their own pocket, okay, to send their two kids on this trip with them. They all stayed in the same room. Well, they get on this trip, everything's going well. They're taking their stereotypical pictures in front of the life preserver vest that says Royal Caribbean Rhapsody of the Seas on it. Everyone's all excited. Everybody's happy. Now, things start to get weird. For example, they eat dinner one night, and as they're eating dinner, everything is plated in front of them. They have name plates and name cards for everybody. One of the waiters says, but they were going to Aruba. They were told, we want to take Amy to Carlos and Charlie's, which was a bar in Aruba that Natalie Holloway was last seen at. If you guys know the name Natalie Holloway. So they wanted to take her there. But unfortunately, Amy wasn't at the table. Maybe we should say fortunately. She wasn't at the table. She was at the bathroom or something, so she wasn't there. So they come back, and if I'm not mistaken, Ron or Iva made a joke like, hey, if anyone needs anything, just say Amy wants it, and they'll be here right away. Whatever you need, just say Amy wants it. Either way. So there were some pretty interesting things. Then the next night, as they're leaving Aruba overnight, they go to that dinner, as I said. They go to the dinner, and then they have this Dancing Under the Stars night, which if you guys have been on cruises, you're just in the middle of the ocean, you dance. You do your thing under the stars. Well, at this point, the parents decide it's getting late. We want to go to bed. So they choose to go to bed. And now it's just Amy and Brad, just brother and sister kind of walking around. Now, they decide to go to the disco or to the club or to the restaurant bar, whatever you guys want to call it. They go do their thing. Brad, I think, is 21 at the time. She's 23. So Brad is over there just doing his thing. He's talking to some people. That's it. He ends up talking to a woman or some women that were married, and one of the husbands got mad at him, whatever. And he mentioned it to his dad before. So just remember that. So now Amy's doing her thing. She's dancing. She's hanging out like in this lounge area. I think they call it the Viking Lounge, but it's an area where it's like kind of like employees hang out. But she's hanging out up there. Brad can see her. He's, again, doing his thing. He's talking to the women. He's single. He's doing his 21-year-old thing is how he calls it. His dad comes up around 3:15 in the morning and comes up and goes, hey, you guys going to come to bed? It's getting kind of late. And he goes, yeah. He goes, where's Amy? He goes, oh, she's up there. And he goes, okay. And again, Ron comes down to check on them because he, as Brad mentions, he goes, I did kind of get into a little verbal dust up, so to speak, with some random guy who was the husband of the girl. Nothing happened, but he was just checking on him. And he said, I think Brad mentioned, he's like, I'm pretty sure my father probably said, why don't you guys like come to bed? He's like, I'd imagine he probably said that, but he wasn't completely, he couldn't remember that, specifically. Also, Brad wasn't really like single at the time. He was dating somebody, but whatever. We're going to move on. I saw Sandy's message. Now, something happens. Around I want to say it was 3:40, Brad goes into his room with his key card. Around 3:45, Amy Bradley goes in. They sit out on the balcony. They're having a discussion. He goes to bed. She stays asleep out on the balcony. She said, he said like she just didn't feel great. He didn't know if she was queasy because of the drinking and being on the ship. So there was a lot going on there. So he goes, she just kind of fell asleep out there. He goes, Brad's like, I just went to bed and she was out there. Ron wakes up around, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 5:30-ish in the morning, sees her, she's fine, sees her legs, and that was it. Then about 30 minutes, 15, I think it was about 20 or 30 minutes later, guys, just to be very clear, I see Sandy in here. I might be off by like 5 minutes on my time frames, but it's not going to make really much of a difference. I just want to give you guys a recap. So if I'm off by like a few minutes, please don't yell at me. I'm doing my absolute best. So Ron wakes up around 5:30, sees her legs on the balcony, goes, okay, she's good, and falls back asleep. He said, well, I kind of felt like I blinked, and I woke up almost 20, 30 minutes later, and she was gone. The sliding door was ajar to the balcony. It was a little open, and then she wasn't there. He woke up. He was in a tizzy trying to figure out where she was. He goes and looks for her, and I appreciate you, Sandy, and can't find her. Has no idea where he even goes and looks for her, can't find her. Goes back to the room. He wakes Brad up, wakes up Iva. Have you seen Amy? No, and it just one big thing starts to occur. Where is Amy? Nobody knows where she is. They went to the desk. The purser's desk. They went to security. They're talking to everybody. Now, here's where things get interesting. Here are the theories of what happened to her. Number one, she jumped overboard. She was quote unquote gay, which by the way, she wasn't gay, but we'll go into that. She was gay and her family didn't like that. And they were upset with her and she was stressed. She jumped. That's theory one. Now, it doesn't mean it's the number one theory. It's just a theory. The next theory is that she just walked off the ship on her own. Like just wanted to start a new life and just that's it. Wanted to walk off. Again, not saying that's what happened. That's just the other theory. And the third theory is that she was trafficked or taken. We don't know which theory it is. We truly don't. We have, and I speak with Sandy, I speak with Brad, I speak with Iva. We have an idea of what happened specifically, but we'll talk about that on a main live about Amy Bradley. But those are those main theories that we have. Now, I will tell you this, guys, she wasn't gay. So that's a big thing that if you guys saw the Netflix documentaries or any of the documentaries, she wasn't gay. She was bisexual. She was dating a man named Tom when she went missing on the ship. She wasn't gay. She was bisexual. So the whole thought of her being gay and the family not being happy about it, it doesn't really align. But whatever. It is what it is. I just want to give you guys the recap there. Now, let's talk about the biggest updates of this case. The biggest updates is everyone is pointing to the bass player. Just to start with this, everyone's pointing to the bass player. Why? Because she was seen with this bass player allegedly by two college students, Lori and Crystal, by an elevator. The last two people to see her alive, see Amy Bradley alive, was with this bass player. That's what we know. Okay? Now, since then, that bass player was given a lie detector test or a polygraph test, and it came back inconclusive. Didn't pass, didn't fail. Came back inconclusive. And this was like years back. Now, some of the bigger updates. We were trying to figure out, well, what about all the camera footage? What about all the documentary? There was a lot of people taking videos. There was marketing videos and advertising videos happening. Well, what happened to all that footage? Well, we found out, guys, in October of 2025, so just 2 months ago, that Kirk Detweiler, which is the cruise director, told Steve Smith, who was Royal Caribbean's video editor, to delete all the footage. Delete all the footage regarding Amy Bradley and more. Delete everything. We just found that out. There was speculation before that, but we finally got written proof that Steve Smith gave to the family, Sandy Ann specifically, and then obviously she gave it to me. I put the video out. But again, that is one of the biggest pieces that we have. Steve Smith said, yes, it was from the director, the cruise director. He told me to delete everything. Now, we don't know why he was told to delete everything, but he was told to delete everything. It came directly from Kirk Detweiler. Now, here's another big update that we heard. Back in, I want to say it was October, it could have been September, October, Brad Bradley, along with his mom, Iva, and his dad, Ron, went down to Washington, D.C. to have a very important meeting with some very important people. We are still waiting for some of the results of that. From what we understand, it's going in the right direction. I don't know much more than that, but it's going in the right direction. Now, another big update on this case. Like I told you guys, there's a lot of updates on this case. Recently on News Nation, I believe it is, News Nation, the PI, his name is Jim Carrey. No, not Ace Ventura. Different guy. His voice is too deep to be Ace Ventura. But he's a Boston guy like me, so I gotta like the guy. Anyways, he went on to News Nation and gave an interview, and he said a couple things that caused a little bit of a stir, but it was because of more semantics. He didn't, he was nervous giving the interview, stuff like that. So I'm going to correct it now again, just so that everyone's clear. At one point he said, I'm working pretty much free of charge, pro bono. And everyone got mad saying, well, why is the family asking for money? Well, he's asking for money. The family's asking for money because even though he's working pro bono, when he has to travel to go places like the Caribbean to investigate things on the low, he's not paying for that himself. That has to come from the family. That's the stuff that has to be paid for. And Brad Bradley works a full-time job. His mom and dad, Ron and Iva, still work full-time jobs. Brad never even had children because of what happened to his sister. That's sad. That's so sad. Okay? So, that's a big thing. Another big thing is they went to Curacao about a year or so ago, the PI, and they met with somebody. His name was Herman Golo. They met with someone that said that they could lead them to where Amy Bradley is, but they need $50,000 to get her out of there. They went there with the money. He actually kind of dodged the PI. The PI ended up seeing him, talking about it. They actually broke into the PI's hotel room, trying to look for this check, but never got it. There was a lot going on with that Herman guy. The last time Amy was seen allegedly was said to be a couple of years ago. However, that was a couple years before Herman Golo's brother passed away. So Herman Golo's brother passed away in 2018, if I believe, Sandy, keep me honest, passed away in 2018. Now, since he passed away in 2018, he said that it was a couple years prior to that. So what he's saying is, about 2 years ago, I saw her, which was 2016. So when the PI, Jim Carrey, decided to come on and say, yes, it's been a couple of years, it was from 2018 to 2016. That was the couple years he was referring to, not a couple years ago from today, which would have been 2023. Those were the semantics that I wanted to make sure that we cleared up. Now, other than that, Brad Bradley has been a strong advocate for the family from the very, very beginning. He's given Dr. Phil interviews as of recent. I think number 4 just came out today or yesterday. So he has been an advocate for the family ever since this happened. He wants answers for his sister. He obviously has an idea of what happened. He's just trying to get the answers out there, and he's trying to find out as many answers as he possibly can. And right now, he's stuck. Right now, there's only so much we can do. There's only so many areas we can look. That's where we're at. But that's why we continue talking about it. The final thing is the major update regarding this, what I started it off with the shoes. And the reason why I'm talking about the shoes is because I brought it up. I brought it up to Brad and I brought it up to Sandy Ann. I sent a message to Brad. This was months ago. And I said, hey, just have a quick question. Where were her shoes? And he goes, they were on the balcony. I'm like, did you ever see them? When did you see them? And he goes, now that you mention it, we never saw them. He goes, we only said they were there because that's what security said. But we never actually saw them. He goes, my mind is blown. We never thought of that. He goes, the shoes are by my mother's bed, but none of us ever saw them by the balcony. The reason I asked was because I'm like, well, you guys left that room unattended. What if someone dropped her shoes off there? That's kind of where I was going with it. But he was like, he just kept saying, like, I can't believe we never thought of this. We never saw it. We were told by security they were there, but we never saw it. So then I doubled down. And I said to Brad, well, if you didn't see it, when did you leave? And he goes, the 24th, because if you guys didn't know, they got off the ship to go look for her on the island of Curacao. The Royal Caribbean packed everything for them, including Amy's stuff, everything. Everything was packed. There was nothing left in the room. And they got off the ship. FBI showed up 2 days later. They showed up on March 26th. They showed up 2 days later, and they even mentioned on the documentary that her shoes were on the balcony. But that's very confusing, because if the shoes were packed already and they were off the ship on the 24th, and FBI got there on the 26th, how would they see those shoes on the balcony? Because the FBI did exactly what the Bradley family did. They were told by security that the shoes were on the balcony, but they never actually saw them. Same thing with the Bradleys. They never actually saw them. Okay? So that's the big thing. And Brad brought it up on the recent Dr. Phil interview, which is really, really important. So I'm really glad that that was brought up. Those are the biggest updates that we have, at least I can disclose to you guys. There was other things that were going around. For example, there's a photo of Amy Bradley allegedly from like 2005 or 2002 where she's on a bed and they say it's Amy Bradley. When I say they, I'm talking about like media. Say it's possibly Amy Bradley. It was an escort on an escort site. It does look like her, but we don't know if it's actually her. And at this point, it really doesn't matter because it was from like 2002 to 2005. It was over 20 years ago. There's no point in spending time on it. We don't know if it was her or not. It looks like her, but we don't have any actual 100% proof that it is, or DNA analysis to say it is her. We don't know. Like I said, it happened over 20 years ago. There's no point in harping on that. That's not going to help us find her now. So that's the only other stuff that you guys will hear about that. Those are the major updates regarding Amy Bradley. Like I said, those are the updates that I can share with you guys. There's a lot of other intricate pieces about this case that I will save for a regular live of just Amy, which I always do. And just one more time, I want to make sure I saw a lot of people asking questions. And I was not going to answer questions, but I see a lot of people asking questions about her shoes. Her shoes are currently by her mother's bedside, Ivor Bradley's bedside. So yes, those shoes were found. Okay, they were packed in the bag and then they unpacked it because the crews packed everything for the Bradleys and then shipped it to Richmond, Virginia. They're from West Virginia. Shipped it to Richmond, Virginia, and then it was shipped to their home. So, and everything was unpacked, and her shoes are, I think, currently sitting next to Ivor Bradley's bedside, from what I understand. This is something that Ivor confirmed and Sandy Ann confirmed. I'm assuming they have not been moved. So yes, those shoes have been found. And like I said, there is a lot more intricate pieces, guys, of this case, but as we continue talking about it, when I do a live of just Sandy Ann, of just Amy Bradley, sometimes I've even had Brad on a couple of times, or brother, Sandy's been on multiple times. When we talk just about Amy, I will make sure to go into those nitty gritty details, but I wanted to give you guys a recap of this case, and I wanted to give you guys the major updates on this case. Those are the most important pieces. We are looking for her. We are working with that PI. I still talk with them to give them some things that I'm thinking about going back and forth. I vowed to Brad I think it was on Christmas Day when I texted them to say Merry Christmas. I said, we will get answers in 2026. I don't know if Brad's listening now, but Sandy, I don't know if I even told you that. I think I just told Brad. But I did say we will get answers in 2026. The platform is growing, and I'm going to utilize that platform to continue getting answers for Amy Bradley and the family. And as I said, Brad, I told you we will get answers for her. So, guys, those are the big updates that we have on this case. We have one more case to talk about before I disclose the brand new case. Before we do that, and before we move on to the next case, there's 1,100 of you on right now. Please press that follow button right above my head. Brad Bradley works a full-time job. His mom and dad work full-time jobs. Sandy Ann works full-time jobs. They can only do so much. They can only be the voice for Amy for so long, for so many times. They can't do it all the time. The guy's always, I think he's in the medical field. Everyone's working and busy. If I can put my voice out there for Amy, I absolutely will. If I can do it for Ivor and Ron, I absolutely will. If I can do it for Sandy Ann, I absolutely will. But the only way I can do that is if you guys continue to press that little follow button, tag me in things. We can always brainstorm back and forth, but you guys are the reason why we're always doing it. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. We will be hitting 26 hard with the Amy Bradley story. Brad, you, and if you tell your mom as well, we will be hitting 2026 really, really hard with Amy Bradley's story. The platform is growing, so we're going to utilize that growth to get the word out there. So we're going to do what we need to do. So again, guys, thank you guys for all the support, and thank you guys for all the follows. We have one more case before I disclose the new one. And here is the final case before we disclose the brand new case. Every one of you stand by, stand by, stand by. You guys know this case, and this is another one that has a lot of updates to it. There's a lot of different pieces of the puzzle when it comes down to this case. So stand by. I'll put the case up. Here we go. Appreciate you, Brad. So this is Karen Reid. Hopefully you guys know this face. Karen Reid was alleged to have unalived her Boston police officer boyfriend. I just completely drew a blank because I saw someone ask Brad if he was a PI. Sorry, John O'Keefe. This was back in January of 2022, January 29th to be exact. Now, she had trial one, guys, in 2024. It began in April of 2024, and it ended in a hung jury, which means all 12 jurors could not come to a unanimous decision. They couldn't. Okay, they couldn't all come to a guilty or not guilty. They were stuck. In April of 2025, she went on trial number 2, and she was found not guilty. The only thing she was found guilty of was the driving under the influence, which we always say in Massachusetts is the most expensive DUI in Massachusetts history. The most expensive. Okay, the most expensive DUI in Massachusetts history. It costs taxpayers millions of dollars to just literally convict her of a DUI. It's ridiculous. Now, let me give you guys a recap of this case. Back on January 29, 2022, she goes to a bar with her boyfriend, John. They meet a bunch of other Boston police officers and an ATF agent named Brian Higgins. They all go to the bar. You see it on the documentaries. You see it on the trials. You see the CCTV footage. They're all sitting there. They're hugging. They're kissing. Everyone's getting along. Now, just so you guys know, this is the case that everyone started to find me on, and I started to gain a little bit of a following here. It was on this case. So I'm like, this case is near and dear. It's where I started. Now, January 29th, they're all going out. They're all having a good time. Things start to change. You can see this on the CCTV footage. Things start to change. We don't know what happened, but something started to shift. Okay? Everything started to shift. And you start to see the tension build. We found out that Brian Higgins, the ATF agent, and Karen Reid exchanged some text messages that were very inappropriate. She was in a committed relationship with John. Brian Higgins was not. They exchanged some messages that they shouldn't have. It is what it is. Okay, we can't go back. Well, there was some tension that started at that bar, and they were invited back to 34 Fairview, which was the home of Brian Albert. Okay? John goes to this house. Now, here's the theory one. Theory one is that she was so drunk, she lets John out of the car, and then she backs her car up at 24 miles an hour, because that was what the black box, or whatever it's called, the ECM electronic device said, that she backed up at 24 miles an hour, struck him, and he passed away. Theory two is that she let him into the house, or she let him out, and he walked into the house and got beat up in the house, and then he was thrown onto the grass by the flagpole in one big cover-up. Those are the two theories. Now, we can talk for hours on end about each theory. But theory one, she hit him with the vehicle. Theory two, he went into the house, got beat up, and he was thrown outside by the flagpole. Theory two has more evidence to support that theory, not theory one. Theory two has the evidence to support. Theory two says that he went into the house, he got beat up, and he was thrown outside. Well, if you guys looked at his injuries, which we can't bring up here, if you look at his injuries, it does look like he was attacked and ambushed and was in a fight. You also see scratch and claw marks on his arm. They had a dog named Chloe at the time. It was a German Shepherd Belgian Malinois mix, a very reactive dog. So theory two makes the most sense. Now, also around 2 o'clock in the morning, there was a Ford Edge parked by the flagpole, and that was seen by the plow truck driver. His name, he goes by Lucky. Now, he sees this vehicle, happens to be exactly in the same exact area that John was found a few hours later. There was Google searches that were allegedly made. How long to be unalived in the snow. Now, Jennifer McCabe says she never made those Google searches, but they were clearly made and they were there. They were there during the trial. So that was clear as day. She also mentioned that she only looked that stuff up because Karen Reid asked her to, which I do believe that Karen Reid probably asked her to do that. But she looked it up at 2:28 in the morning and then around 6 o'clock in the morning. So it doesn't really make sense. Now, that's theory 2. The evidence lines up to theory 2. The evidence does not line up to theory 1. Theory 1 is that she hit him with her vehicle. However, forensics did not line up with that theory. Medical professionals didn't line up to that theory. Biomechanical engineers didn't line up to that theory. It's not possible. Theory 1 is that she hit him with her vehicle, but yet he didn't have a single broken bone. He also didn't have a single bruised bone. Nothing at all. So if you have a vehicle that's like 4,000 or 5,000 pounds backing up and hitting you at 24 miles an hour, you most likely have at least a bruised bone. He didn't have a single bruised bone. Nothing at all. So theory 1 didn't really make sense. Also, the fact that they found taillight pieces by a fire hydrant doesn't make sense either, because there was a blizzard that night, and fire hydrants are always supposed to be cleared at least 5 feet all around. So the fact that they found all of these taillight pieces by the fire hydrant is a little suspicious to me. And also, only people that found these pieces of taillight were the Massachusetts State Police at random times. Doesn't make sense. Now, like I said, theory 1, she hit him with a vehicle. Theory 2, he was beat up and a dog attacked. Those are the biggest theories. Now, here is the biggest updates. Here's the major updates when it comes down to this. It is the most expensive DUI in history. Now, here's the biggest updates regarding this case. She was found not guilty in June of 2025 of all severe charges. She was only found guilty of the DUI, driving under the influence. Now, a lot of people were saying things like, why, everybody was driving drunk that night. Why did she get in trouble? Well, she was the one that was, she was the one that was on trial. Like, it is what it is. Wrong place, wrong time. It is what it is. Now, major update number 1. There's a civil suit. She was found not guilty in criminal court, but she's being sued by the O'Keefe family in civil court. She was found not guilty in criminal, but she's being sued in civil. If you guys don't know the difference, criminal and civil are two different things. Criminal is more for the punishment is typically by jail time, something like that. Civil is more for monetary value. So just know that. So the civil case is pretty much saying that she's liable for the unaliving of John O'Keefe. Even though she was found not guilty in criminal, doesn't mean she's going to be found not liable, because it's liable or not liable in civil. We don't know. But typically, it's two completely different things. The burden of proof is lower in civil versus criminal. In criminal court, it is beyond a reasonable doubt. In civil, it is like preponderance of evidence, pretty much more likely to happen. So just note there is a big difference there. So that's one update. The next update is that the judge dropped one of the charges. The charge that was dropped as of right now is John O'Keefe was the caregiver of his niece and nephew because the parents passed. The niece and nephew's parents passed, like the sister and the father. They passed away. So he was the caregiver. So she had to go and tell the kids that they passed away, or that John passed away. And the family saying that created emotional harm. The judge said, how else do you want her to know? How else do you want her to tell them, what happened? There's no easy way to do it. So he dropped those charges. Now, Karen Reid is suing the world. She's suing Canton PD, individual people of Massachusetts PD. She's suing everybody. They're supposed to be suing her, but we haven't heard that yet. So we heard verbally that they're supposed to be suing Karen Reid for defamation and all that, but it hasn't hit the books yet, and it's been over a month. So I believe that was a scare tactic because it hasn't happened yet. But Karen Reid is suing all of them, and that motion has been filed. That is on record. So there is an open case against her, suing them for covering it up and failure to supervise and failing to do a proper investigation. Now, here's the next thing. This is probably the bigger piece. Michael Proctor. Michael Proctor was the lead investigator in the case. He has since lost his job with the Massachusetts State Police, and about 2 weeks ago, his certifications were revoked, which means he cannot be a police officer or peace officer anywhere at all at this point. He has lost union representation. He has lost everything. I call him Trooper McFluffy, but he's lost everything at this point. His family's kind of broken up now. I think they're in the middle of a separation with his wife, Elizabeth. So there's a lot going on for Mike. And then the other big thing that we know is the O'Keefes just filed a new suit against Karen about 2 weeks ago. This suit is Karen says, hey, I know what happened. You know, this happened in the garage or this happened in the basement. Then you had her attorney, Alan Jackson, saying, I have a good idea of what happened that night. Well, the O'Keefes want to know what that is. They want Karen Reid to go under oath and say, well, what is it? When you say you have this information, what is it? That's what they want to know, and Karen hasn't responded to that yet. Also, this case has been moved to federal court as of right now. The Reid group, I call it the Reid group, has not tried to file an additional motion to move it. So currently right now, that motion is to move it to federal court, and they have not responded to that motion. If it goes to federal court, we will not be able to watch this case live. We're going to have to watch it like the Diddy case. They're going to have to put like a reenactment thing together, like a friggin' play. And that's what they're going to have to put together. So that's just the way it is. But yes, they do have a civil trial against Karen Reid. And then they have another big trial that she's suing them because it involves the Fourth Amendment, which is a federal right. So it is going to be going to federal court as of right now. It could definitely be moved back to civil, but it hasn't been changed. They usually have like 4 to 6 months to respond to that. So they haven't responded yet. It's been about a month. So they have time. Now, that is all the major updates on this case. Again, I can go into the nitty gritty about this case. We'll be here for 4 hours, but when I do lives just talking about Karen Reid, I will make sure to go into the nitty gritty there. This one is a really, really solid case. This is a big case. The big parts are already out there right now. There's a new documentary coming out on Lifetime in January. I don't know the date, maybe the 9th, 10th, 11th, something like that. But there's a new documentary coming out, so you guys will have an opportunity to see that. But you can also see A Body in the Snow. That's also out there for you guys to see. Now, maybe not. Maybe it's not called a documentary. It's just like a story that whatever it is, it's going to be on Lifetime. Now, we need to disclose the new case. I promised you guys I would disclose a new case, but I want to tell you, we talked about JonBenet Ramsey. I gave you all the updates on JonBenet Ramsey. We talked about Ellen Greenberg. We talked about Mara Murray. We talked about Ashley Barnett. We talked about Amy Bradley. We now just talked about Karen Reid. This is a huge case. The last 2 cases, guys, were huge. You know, we were talking about these cases for months, and you guys just kept showing up and talking and communicating with me. And you guys know I love to ask questions to with you guys, answer you guys. It's so tough to do that when I'm just kind of going off on these rants. We are going to be giving you guys the new case, okay? A brand new case. This case is huge. Okay, it's just as big as Karen's case, in my opinion, just as big as Amy Bradley's case, just as big as JonBenet's case. This case is going to keep you guys up. It is a case that you guys know about. You guys all know this case. All of you do. We've been talking about it for so long. The whole freaking world has been talking about this case. Before I give you the case, I'm going to do this one last time. Press that follow button. There's almost 300,000 clicks and likes and taps on this. There's a whole bunch of gifts. There's 1,000 of you. You guys need to press that follow button right now. Press that follow button. Before I give you guys this new case, press that follow button. I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it. Keep pressing it. We are going to start talking about this case tomorrow, and I'm going to disclose what this case is. I'm really excited about it. I remember seeing this case, and I remember getting into it. I'm like, oh, this is why I love true crime. This is why I love doing it. And I would talk to my friends about it. I would talk to my family about it. My wife is like, I don't even care. But that's just what I used to do. Are you guys ready to hear the new case? I'm really, really excited. Just to be very clear, we're going to be talking about this new case and toggling back and forth with other cases as well. But we're going to be hitting this case strong. You guys ready for the new case? Ready? I wish I could do like a little mental drum roll. Let me get out the way. Guys, here is our new case. I'm really, really excited about it. We're going to start talking about it tomorrow. Here is the new case. Right there. Soak it in. Soak it in. Scott and Lacey Peterson. That is the new case. I'm crazy excited about this case. Why are we talking about this case? Because he might be getting a new trial. That's why. It happened right around this time, back in like 02, 03. That's why we're talking about this case. Because if he gets a new trial, he might get off on this thing. Right now, he's still in jail. He's still in jail right now. But there's new evidence that has been coming out lately like crazy that he might get a new trial. And if he gets that new trial, I don't know. If he gets a new trial, I don't know what's going to happen. But I will tell you guys this. I purposely did this with John Bonet. I've done this with the other cases. When I look into these cases, and these are brand new cases, I look into them just like you guys. I come into it with an open mind. So when I start looking at this case and I start looking into this case, I'm looking into it like you guys are, because I have some thoughts on this case, but those thoughts might go away as I continue to dig into this case and start to look at some stuff. Problem is, he might be getting a new trial because new evidence came up. So I don't want to say he did it. I don't want to say he's innocent. I don't want to say any of those things because we don't know. So guys, I came through. We talked about John Bonet Ramsey. We talked about Amy Bradley, Ashley Barnett, Karen Reid, Ellen Greenberg, Mara Murray. We gave you all the major updates on that case. This is our new case. Scott and Lacey Peterson. Huge case. There's a lot to digest here. But this is a huge, huge case. And if you guys like how I operate and you like how I deal with these cases and how I present these cases, okay, and you guys like all that, press that follow button up there, because you guys are going to start seeing some videos coming out tomorrow about Scott and Lacey Peterson. We've been talking a lot about John Bonet. You know how I go back and forth between cases. Scott and Lacey Peterson, here is our focus for the next coming few weeks. So guys, press that follow button up there. Thank you guys for hitting us at 308,000 taps. That is incredible, guys. I know I wasn't able to answer any questions. I did that on purpose. I wanted to stick to this agenda. We gave about 15 or so minutes per case. This is a big one. This is your big one. So guys, do your homework on the Scott and Lacey case, Lacey Peterson case. Do your homework on it, because when we start talking about it, I'm going to ask you guys a lot of questions. And that's how we're going to get some answers for this case. We're going to be the voice for Lacey because we don't have a voice. Right now they have somebody who's responsible, which is Scott. He's in jail. She's got some justice right now. But if they give him a new trial and it turns out maybe it's somebody else, we don't know. We got to be the voice. So guys, thank you guys for hanging out, and thanks guys for chatting, and thanks for tapping, and all the followers, guys. Welcome to our grind gang. Appreciate every single one of you. Check on my bio, check on my story. There's new merch for you guys. They're really, really great, cool like t-shirts, hoodies, hats. They all look awesome. So get over there, take a look, listen to the podcast, guys. I appreciate every single one of you, and get ready because Scott and Lacey Peterson is going to be an incredible new case. Really, really excited about it. Guys, enjoy the rest of your Saturday night. I appreciate every single one of you. We will be live tomorrow, and be ready because we're talking about Scott and Lacey Peterson. Guys, have a good night.